Hello and welcome to a special episode of the Geek Warning podcast. This is another episode of Info Review, where we talk about the things we're currently testing and the things on our mind of the various items that are surrounding us and that we've been spending time on that at some point soon we'll be reviewing. We did our first of these a few months back, and we had the goal and the promise that we'd do them every month, and I think we failed at that, so not the best start given we'd only managed to do one, but here we are with the second edition. It's the end of April. We're going to talk about some of the things that we've been using over the past little while, and hopefully we can be a little bit more regular with these moving forward. Well, I'm Dave Rome, a senior tech editor with Escape Collective.
And I'm Suvi, Loponen, tech reporter here at Escape Collective.
And I am Alex Hunt, also a tech reporter at Escape Collective. How are you, Dave?
Yeah, no, I'm good, thank you, Alex. And I think it's worth noting that Ronan was meant to be here. He stitched us up. He's somewhere in Turkey covering a bicycle race. And then Josh Weinberg, our US tech editor, is sleeping. So, which I think is a fair excuse. Time zones are hard, it turns out. So, but with that, I think there's still plenty to talk about. I know Alex and Suvi, you've been gallivanting around just about everywhere lately, and you've had a bunch of new bikes come in. So I think there's some interesting stuff that we'll get through. This episode is largely free for all listeners of Geek Warning. However, members of Escape Collective will be treated to a little bit extra at the end, where we cover a few of the products we're using that, truthfully, we found to be a little bit disappointing. So, we'll be keeping that juicy segment just for those that support and have access to everything that Escape Collective publishes. Suvi, Alex, I know you've both been very busy, have flown to multiple destinations as of late. So the question I have to begin with, which is, have you ridden more bikes or have you flown on more planes?
Have we flown bikes on planes, you ask?
Is that how the question sounded?
It did.
Oh, okay. How many different types of bikes have you flown versus how many planes have you been on?
That's a confusing question, Dave.
Shall we just skip the question, go straight to the bikes?
I haven't been on a single plane either, I don't think.
Oh,
for a while.
Okay. All right. A lot of long distance trains.
Yeah.
I'm just bringing the Escape emissions up massively. Then
it's all your fault.
Yeah, I've definitely been on more planes than I have on bikes this past month.
Okay,
that's for sure.
All right. Care to share any of the countries you've been in?
Italy, Spain, and Belgium are the main ones.
All right.
And it doesn't look to be ending anytime soon as well.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, hope you're having some fun amongst it, and I guess that's with each of those trips, it's probably worth noting that you've managed to ride different bikes and have brought home a few of those to continue testing. So I think that probably leads us well into talk about some of those bikes. So Alex, what are you riding at the moment? What do you want to talk about?
So the bike I've been riding most, actually, pretty much throughout most of April, is the new RCR-F from Van Rysel. So this is the aerodynamic brother of the RCR that came out last year, and it's quite a departure from that bike. It's very heavily aerodynamically optimized, and it puts the rider in arguably quite a forced, aggressive position. There is no easy way of setting up a more relaxed position. This is undoubtedly a bike for people looking to pin a number on race. I think if you're looking for a cafe cruiser, this isn't going to be the bike for you, and I think you'd struggle anyway to get it to fit you. I think that's the biggest thing I've taken away from sizing myself up on this bike, and also having ridden it both in Belgium and back at home. The geometry of this bike it's unlike most road bikes you'd probably be familiar with.
I think it's very long and low in its geometry, and I guess what stood out to me is so many brands, when they release an aero bike, or historically speaking, maybe that trend is now changing, but historically speaking, a lot of brands have tried to keep similar or familiar geometry between their road bikes, and this one, is
not happened.
It's definitely different compared to the standard RCR. So
it's definitely very long and definitely very low, and I think you see just how extreme that is on the smaller sizes that are available. I think it's going to be a bike where very specific short riders are going to have this bike available to them because of just how long the reach is. I think if you have a short torso, it's going to be very difficult to get the bike to fit you, because the extra small has a 382mm reach, and that already comes with the shortest cockpit that the brand make for this bike, which is a 70mm stem.
Yeah, wow.
So
okay.
there is no way of making
Did you
that
say
short.
388?
Yeah.
382.
Oh, 80. Okay, still. That's
Yeah.
long.
Suvi,
It's,
like you'd typically pick an extra small or an extra small in a brand's lineup. Like, what sort of reach number are you typically looking for in a road bike?
It's a good question, Dave.
Okay.
On top of my head, probably more like 360. It depends. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this thing's, for a given size is 20 plus mil more than I guess what you'd expect an extra small road bike to be in. But
and also it's also around a centimetre to a centimetre and a half lower as well. So even though it comes with a generous amount of spacers, most of them are going to be needed. So yeah,
gotcha.
It's definitely an aggressive
Yeah,
bike.
this conversation reminds me of a podcast I just recorded with Ronan, which was it's for Performance Process, and we're sort of creating sort of like a buyer's guide to modern aero focused road bikes, like a checklist. And yeah, suddenly the conversation we kept having was like this thing around usable aero, like whether the bike, if it was optimized for some very athletic pros, whether that's actually applicable, whether you can actually achieve the aero benefits or the claim benefits of that bike as a non-pro. And I think this bike definitely raises some of those questions. Like, you'd need to be an athletic racer in order to benefit from this bike. And I think if you're looking at it as like, I just want to ride weekends and I want to enjoy cycling and I want the bike from the World Tour, then there's a lot of bikes in the World Tour that would be significantly better for more casual cyclists than what this thing is. This is very much like a sharp tool.
I think potentially a good litmus test, if this is a bike that's taking your interest, is if you can't ride your current bike on the drops or on the hoods but with a 90-degree bend in your elbows for an hour or more, you're probably going to struggle to ride in any position on the RCR-F, let alone getting into the most aggressive aero position that you'd probably want to ride.
Yeah, I think that's a really astute point. And I think, this is a bike that I saw at Tour Down Under, and it was being raced by just a small handful of the team at that point, whether that was related to supply or just that was the number of riders that actually suited the bike. Yeah. So Decathlon AG2R was the team, and what stood out to me with that bike was just how insanely deep the handlebar was. Like, if you imagine the tops of the handlebar, it was like nothing else that I'd really seen. It was like a true wing that I wear like a medium-sized glove, and I reckon I certainly wouldn't be comfortable holding onto the tops of that bar, but I like even struggle to think how I'd get like finger and thumb wrap around the thing.
Yeah, so the only bar I can think of that comes close is Dare had one last year, which was basically a dinner table. But yeah, when I spoke to the engineers about the RCR cockpit, the RCR-F cockpit, sorry, they basically said that when they were talking with the team, they just came to the agreement that the tops weren't going to be a hand position for this cockpit. So you've either got the hoods or you've got the drops.
Awesome.
And I think there are some exceptions. I think you can, on smooth roads, you can still use them. You can just rest your hands on the top. But I took the RCR-F to Roubaix. And normally I'd want to ride on the tops. It's just a riding position that keeps me in most control. There is zero chance of keeping my hands on the tops on that bike.
Sure.
So it is just another thing to be aware of, is that the cockpit is 2-position rather than 3-position. And if you do enjoy riding on the tops, that's not going to be all that achievable.
Yeah. So anyway, it's certainly an interesting bike. Like, it's very much a race focused steed. And what stood out to me is how surprising that is to come from a company that's like basically like a general mass population sporting store. Like, Van Rysel is the house brand of Decathlon, the sporting goods. So yeah, I certainly would expect this sort of tool from like Ridley and Dare, which, those are other brands that have comparable bikes. But Van Rysel, it's a surprise, but it shows you how much they're designing around that team.
Yeah, and I think actually quite interestingly, in the UK, Van Rysel have now partnered with Sigma Sport. So the RCR-F will be available through Sigma Sport, which I think is probably to help with that kind of brand image of where you would expect to see a World Tour aero bike. That, people walking in to buy a tent probably aren't going to care all that much about a 13-watt faster bike. But Sigma Sport, which is a fairly sizable chain online and in store in the UK, is probably a place where people are going to be more likely looking for this type of bike.
Does Van Rysel not have their own store as well, or like a concept?
They have store in store. So in the bigger Decathlon stores, they have like a Van Rysel specific shop.
Okay.
Gotcha.
But yeah, they exist in the same entity.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, it's probably worth noting that this bike you just got your hands on recently, and you have written it up for Escape as an info review article. So I'd say that should be live by the time anyone's listening to this. So yeah, head to the site.
Yeah, go and give it a check
see
out.
Photos and geo of it, and yeah, Alex, I know you compare it to your own Tarmac SL8 that is your own personal bike, and sort of point out just how different that geo is.
Yeah, quite a different bike.
Yeah.
One thing I would definitely encourage anyone that is considering this bike is look at the geometry chart extensively, but also try and get your leg over one, because they are incredibly different to most of the bikes that you've probably ridden.
And check out the podcast I did with Ronan in Performance Process, because I think it's almost as if we did that podcast for this bike, which it wasn't in the intention, but I think it certainly is a strong example. So Van Rysel sort of built itself a reputation for, I mean, they falsely had the reputation for being the cheapest bike in the world tour, which turned out not to be true. That accolade actually belongs to Cube. But yeah, second cheapest bike in the world tour. Is this thing as high in value?
No, it is slightly more expensive, especially if you're going for the top pro model, the Dura-Race one. That is £10,000 now, or 9,500 euros.
Okay.
Yeah. So it still undercuts a lot of competition, but it is 500 of your chosen currency more than the Dura-Race RCR Pro. But actually, as you step down the offerings, they become better value. So the 105 Di2 model, which is where the range starts, is £5,000 or 5,500 euros. And actually, apart from the group set, you're getting a very comparable build. You're getting the Swisside Hadron 625 wheels. They're the classics rather than the ultimates, but they're the same depth and shape. And it's the same frame. They're not doing a tiered frame between the two models. They both have the same chassis. So for half the price, you're definitely getting a lot more than half the bike.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, I guess it does highlight that maybe that top tier spec is, funnily enough, yet again, another thing we mentioned in the podcast I did with Ronan for Performance Process, but that top level pro spec is not always the best value option.
If you're buying this bike for its aerodynamic qualities, I definitely think that you're getting 95, if not more, % of the benefit with the 105 build. There's obviously a weight penalty. Okay. I think there's about half a kilo between the two bikes, but if you're buying this purely to go fast on the flat, I think the 105 is actually a very attractive option.
And that one-piece dead handlebar assembly that you can't hold on to the tops of, is that featured in all prices?
Yep, that is across all prices.
Okay, that part actually is quite surprising to hear. Yeah.
It's very hard looking at the price list and spec sheet to work out quite how the Dura-Race version is double the price.
Yeah. One to ask about, I think, by the time, for when you get around to reviewing that bike. But yeah, cool. All right. Suvi, what have you been riding lately? What's on your list?
Oh, I've been still riding the Mog that we already talked about.
Yeah. The NB Mog. Yeah.
But I've also been riding. Yeah, I've been also riding the Standert Kettensäge. I'm probably butchering. I don't speak German, so the chainsaw, I think it stands for, that word. But yeah, an aluminium gravel bike.
Cool.
Probably.
Tell us about it.
For a while, it's been a while actually. I've ridden an aluminium gravel bike. I was about to say it's the first one, but it's definitely not. My first bikes were definitely aluminium. It starts with gravel. But it's a Deracha, so a little bit higher end alloy frame. It's I would say I've been slightly confused maybe with the intentions with this bike. It's obviously like made for racing. That's what Standert says. But I also feel like it's a bit of an all-rounder. So I would say that it feels quite in place on the roads. And it's definitely not the rowdiest gravel bike in terms of it doesn't have clearance. It has 45mm clearance, so you can't really fit big tyres on it, which I've found probably is the biggest limiting factor in terms of comfort for me on it. And otherwise, yeah, it's pretty similar in terms of geometry to, for example, Live Devote, which I've ridden, which is like same as Giant Revolt, but just in a smaller size. So yeah, I think that's the basics of it. It has a very traditional, like my biggest thing that I would probably, this similar topic to the Van Rysel, it's the sizing of it is difficult. And as a smaller rider, I'm riding the 48, which is the smallest possible size that they offer. And Standert does this thing called Project Compact. So they've tried to make their bikes so that even smaller riders could actually fit a proper stem on the bikes and not feel like they have to ride a little 70, 60 mil on their bike. I got the bike with a 100 mil stem and it kind of rides okay with that. I've gone 1 centimeter shorter since then. I feel like it was a little bit too much. But I also feel like, yeah.
You might be heading towards what the question I had as soon as you said that. So normally small size bikes use short stems in order to lengthen the frame, so you overcome things like toe overlap. So I mean, how is that?
There is toe overlap, yeah. Even with the stock 40 mil tires, there's toe overlap. I haven't got 45 mil tires on it even yet because I thought I had a 45 mil set in my cupboard. They were actually 40 as well. So I'm waiting to put 45s on it and test, but I think it's going to be even worse then. It also has quite a steep seat angle, 76 degrees, which is certainly more what I would expect from a road bike. And this is what I sometimes feel on smaller bikes. Obviously, that kind of pushes you forward. So then you can go then longer on the stem, which to some extent is better. But yeah, I'm still figuring out that it's quite different to the bikes that I've been riding.
Yeah.
And the geometry and kind of what do I make out of it? And one more thing is the fact that it has quite a straight top tube, because nowadays everything's pretty sloping. This one is definitely not sloping, and it's
quite horizontal.
Yes, and it's very touch and go in terms of standover for me. I don't think anyone with shorter legs than me would stand comfortably over it, which I know is not an issue at all when you're riding. But I think
you can't stand over.
Yeah, exactly. But then what is a bigger problem, I think, especially on gravel bikes, is that I think you don't have much seat post visible. It's really difficult for me to put anything on the, below the saddle, obviously, attach any lights on the seat post. But also I feel like it just makes it a bit too stiff around that area. And that's
very interesting. Okay.
What I kind of feel. So it's a bike that I have a lot of mixed feelings about. Overall, I enjoy riding it, but I'm trying to figure out where all these different feelings, why does it feel stiff in certain places? Where does it come from?
Yeah, I mean, it's also if you're coming off of another bike like a MB Mog with what has a very refined ride quality, then it'll feel even, I guess, it'll exaggerate it even more. But I would say these days you can get quite nice riding aluminium frames, but it's not easy to achieve.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, your note of having very little seat post exposed would be a huge one. And to me, kind of, there's the trade-off between in a gravel bike where they want space for bottles and maybe even space for bags, which is a reason to raise the top tube. But in small sizes, I guess, you also kind of want the ability for the seat post to flex. So not an easy one, but it'd be very interesting to see how that geometry chart, in a 54 centimeter compares to other brands' 54s, in terms of seat tube length and all, whether it starts to become a little bit more normal at that point.
It does.
And whether, okay.
Yeah,
right.
because
so
I think when you compare 54, even I was, for the sake of it, comparing the Mog and in my size, no, they're really quite different in terms of numbers. But 54, they're really quite close, actually, in terms of all the figures. So, yeah, it does change. And I think this is the interesting conversation when I hear people talk about geometries. And I'm like, but what size are you talking about? Because, say, the 54 doesn't get a 76 degree seat tube angle. It doesn't get a 75
very steep for a gravel bike.
Degree trail. It doesn't, or 75 mil trail. So it's quite different. So the smallest sizes, they're obviously, and the largest sizes, I guess it goes to both ends of the curve.
Yeah.
They are different.
That's really interesting. Yeah, okay. I'm certainly keen to hear what you sort of end up concluding on that bike once you wrap that up. But I think it does emphasize how fortunate Escape is to have you testing the sizes that are often ignored, but also, it does sort of open up a lot of questions over what the right path is as far as optimizing the smaller sizes. And I don't know if Standard has, just based on what you told me, I don't know if Standard has landed on the right answers. So
yeah, I think they're doing some things they are doing right. And I think one of the things that they do offer for their bikes is that you can customize the components. Like I could pick the bike as if I was buying it, so I could pick my crank length.
Okay.
Fair enough, there's limitations to that. Obviously, like I couldn't get 160 mil, even though I would have wanted riding with this Ram Force Explorer. So I have 165 cranks, which on some bikes, like say even Liv, who really praise themselves to be very accommodating for smaller riders, often I think actually the Devote that I rode had 170 cranks. So, and there's changing that. You can change the handlebar, you can change the stem. So at least Standard does have that, and they were really accommodating. Cool. And I know they do that for customers as well, that they'll actually talk to you about what you could do with the bike to make it fit your bike fit numbers or your fit numbers. So that's a step forward, even if then they conclude that, well, we don't have a bike for you, which is probably better than just selling you a bike and saying, well, this should fit you.
Suvi, what does one of these cost? What's Standard charging for an aluminium bike?
So the frame sets only are starting at 2,200 euros, roughly.
With a fork?
Yes, that's with a fork.
Yeah.
And then the complete bikes were roughly about it's from 4,000, 4,200. Okay. But there's, like I said, there's a lot of different options. So it really, the pricing will depend a lot on what you get. They do, want to highlight that you can get your ceramic speed components on it. So there's a lot of customization options. So it's not as set prices. So I think the frame set is probably the best ballpark comparison.
Gotcha.
Like 2,200 euros.
Cool. Okay.
Well, Dave, what have you been riding? Or have you been riding at all?
Yeah, funny you mentioned that. I was riding bikes, and I'd ridden said bikes since the last time we recorded our Info Review podcast, but I'm 3 and a bit weeks into recovering from broken ribs. So they're not on my mind, the test bikes. Let's put it that way. I've got still a 51 Seeker that I have members chasing me regularly for, asking me whether they should buy it. Short answer, it's a great bike, but it's been largely problem free. And so if you're questioning whether to buy it, I think the answer is yes. But I will review that very soon. And then I'm hoping to take delivery of some other things that I actually can't talk about. So one for a future episode, I think, given the timing of all that. So very, very busy testing, or will be very busy testing more of the components that you attach to bikes rather than the whole bikes themselves, to give a tease. Let's move on to the next section, because no one wants to hear me just complain about my inability to laugh. And that section being the things I guess we've been really enjoying using, testing, riding as of late, the products that we sort of look forward to spending time in and on or with. And Suvi, what's on your list for this?
Well, I didn't have any components or anything, so mine's apparel, wearable things. So I got the new POC Cytal helmet to
what is that?
Try out. So that's their top tier helmet, I guess it is. But to be honest, now I'm thinking, is the aero the weird one that the pros use as well? Is that the top tier? Anyway, this is extremely expensive helmet still. It's like 300 plus pounds, euros, dollars, everything. But they launched last year the POC released the Cytal Carbon. And this is the non-carbon version, which I think is like 10, 20 grams heavier than the carbon, but then went and tested better in Virginia Tech tests.
Interesting.
So
okay.
I think it's the best ranking road cycling helmet, and in the rankings at the moment.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
it's got like good safety credentials, but obviously that's not really, I can't test those really unless I crash.
You don't want to.
No.
Yeah.
But overall, just it's got a bulky looking helmet, and it surprised me because when I got it, I was like, I'm not gonna like it. It's too chunky and big, and it's gonna be heavy. But it's not that heavy, and it's very well ventilated. So even though it is quite full coverage, it comes very low on the forehead. It breathes really well. And having long hair, I struggle with helmets not breathing in the summer. It's regular for me to do the squeeze and then have sweat in my eyes all the time. But yeah, this one I've just been really pleasantly surprised. And speaking of the sweat, I found because it has the MIPS air node lining, so the MIPS is integrated into the padding, and I've struggled. So my usual favorite is the Met Trenta 3K, which is also very light, it's breathable, it has their air node MIPS, but I've had to buy a new set of padding for it because I tried to wash the padding, and then obviously it kind of breaks, and it's quite important that you have it in the helmet. So I had to completely replace the padding because it's really difficult to, I find, keep the padding clean. But the POC one actually has a removable forehead pad on top of the MIPS padding, which I like in the last week when it's actually been warmer up here. I found it's really useful because you can just take that little forehead pad off and brow pad off, and then just wash that, and then it's not going to be stinking as the other ones are.
So it might really prolong the life of the otherwise expensive MIPS liner.
Exactly. I mean, I guess if you care about smelly smells or cleanliness.
Sure.
Which again, because I feel I do care more about that because of my sweaty head and hair.
Yeah, okay. Well, no, it sounds like a good product. Also sounds like an expensive one, but
it definitely is. Yeah. I think it's a difficult one. I have thought about it, whether it's worth it, but if it's very safe. I think helmets is that one of those things where I'm almost happy to splurge, that it's safety. And I know there's loads of opinions about helmets, but it's your safety. And I think having something that fits you well and you like the look of is really important, so you'll wear it, and that is just safe. It's really important for me.
A safe helmet that's light and breathes well, I think, is one you can start to justify in spending more for. And yeah, I think the fact that it's perhaps aero, is probably all the better.
Probably how high on my list is that? Because I didn't even mention that. Obviously, it probably has quite good credentials.
No.
For me, I don't even think about it, but for some, it probably is a selling point as well.
For sure. All right, cool. Anything else on your list?
Okay, another thing that I've been testing, which is actually, I've been testing multiple different ones, but pee-friendly bib shorts for women. So I've got quite a few different ones, but one that I got recently, and I was quite pleasantly surprised because they've been around for a while. So Velocio, they do this design, which is just basically a stretchier back, and the strap should be stretchier. So you can pull them down while you're wearing a jersey. And there's loads of different versions of how different brands do this, which I will get into when I publish the review or group test one day. But yeah, Velocio's done this on all of their bib shorts or bib tights as well, which is really good for women. I've never got to test them before, and I was skeptical whether they actually live up to the hype, and they're extremely comfortable pair of bib shorts, and they do work. So I've just really enjoyed them.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I don't have a lot of clothing from Velocio, which is the clothing company now owned by SRAM, who seemingly haven't done much to change the company, which is a good thing. It's much the same company that it was before, and I've only got one or two pieces from them, but yeah, I've been really, really happy with those pieces of clothing. So yeah, it's definitely nice stuff. But yeah, your mention of a group test of bib shorts brought a childish thought back into my head, which is when I was at Cycling Tips, I did a group test of bib shorts and borrowed a mannequin from a local bike shop in order to show off the bib shorts, because I didn't just want like only photos of myself posing in bib shorts, although I did have that as well. Just had the childish thought that I actually dress it up in my own clothes and put it into our bed one night when my partner was coming home late from being out, and had the lights turned off and made it seem like I had already gone to sleep. And anyway, I was too hysterical with laughter to ever publish or share the audio that came from that, but good memories. So anyway.
How long was it before you were allowed back?
It was a while. Yes. Yeah. So still worth it. Anyway,
that's funny. It might be I'll need to get a mannequin as well for this one, especially because of the functionality that I'm testing.
Yes.
I was thinking I haven't figured that out yet. But yeah, it will be just. It might be worth.
It might be worth talking to some of the larger shops who probably have a spare mannequin that they don't use, and rent it. So cool. All right. Well, yeah, that's interesting product. Another group test that I think will be really interesting to see. It's not a topic you see covered too much. So, Alex, what's on your list?
I've actually been trying some tyres I'm not that familiar with. I've been given to try, which are the Michelin Power Cup TLR tyres. I've seen a lot of mixed reviews online about them. Some people absolutely love them. Some people have said there's lots of issues with the tyres. And I've been curious to give them a try. I mean, a lot of the issues people have been raising are about how robust the tyres are. I think most people are very happy with their performance in terms of rolling resistance and feel, but a lot of people have pointed out that they're not the hardest wearing and are quite prone to small cuts and nicks, actually rendering the tyre kind of no longer usable as a tubeless tyre. So I've got those fitted to my personal bike, and I've waited until the quote-unquote summer season in the UK has begun to give them a fair testing ground, because I think they are a fair weather summer tyre. I don't think using them in the winter is the right thing to do with a race tyre. But yeah, I've only been using those for a week or two, but so far I'm impressed, and no punctures or anything to report on that front just yet. So I'll report back after a few more months of using those tyres. But yeah, I've got them in the 32mm width. That's just what I use in the UK because our roads are pretty close to gravel. But
yeah.
I'm intrigued to see how they go.
Nice. I think, it's Michelin, as you mentioned, it's not really a brand in the road space that's probably top of mind for many people. Like, it's been at least a decade for me since I had Michelin road tires on my own road bike. And I think it makes sense that that the company should be capable of making a good tire, given how dominant, how big they are in the road space. But they have one that has sort of disappeared a little bit in recent years.
Yeah, I think at least in the UK, Michelin's got a very split opinion between mountain bike and road. So where I ride, the wild enduro tyres are kind of what everyone wants to use for the gravity riding. They have got probably the best reputation of any tyre in terms of grip and performance. But that just doesn't seem to have carried over into their road range. I don't think any of the people I ride with in the last 3 or 4 years have ever used Michelin tyres. So I'm just curious to see how they stack up and how they perform compared to the Vittoria Corsas, which are my kind of go-to tyre, or the Schwalbe one. So
I'm just curious, about the pricing. Did you mention that? Are they cheaper? It doesn't really matter necessarily, but I'm more curious about, because I find Michelins have been cheaper, at least in the past. They used to be.
Yeah, they're £55.
Oh, right, okay, they're not. Yeah, still cheaper.
How does that stack up against like a GP5000 TR?
That's like 65, 70 quid.
Okay. Yeah.
75.
75 now, okay. And Pro ones are probably around 75 as well.
Yeah, certainly the Pirelli P0s are up at Continental pricing. So tires are expensive these days.
They are. If they last longer.
Riding through glass has never been so expensive.
It seems to happen all the time, at least where I am.
Pro ones are 65. But either way, these tyres are a good, 10 to 20% cheaper than the rest. So
all right, yeah, One to watch for. Is that something you're reviewing, or just hope to talk about it again at some point?
I think it's probably more depending on how my experience with the tyre goes, and how much time I actually get potentially before I run into issues. So I think we'll see how it goes. If the issues that people are pointing out raise their head and are prevalent, I would definitely look at involving Michelin and doing a more in-depth review. If they're just a nice tyre, I think that there's probably enough out there already for consumers to go on, and it probably might just feature in some other features I've got coming up.
Okay. Do you have another product on the list?
Yeah, so this is one I'm not reviewing. I've just been using, but it's been eye-opening for me. It's my first pair of kind of cargo bib shorts.
Welcome.
It's from it is from ASOS. It's their Tactica range, which for the Swiss brand sits at their kind of I don't think budget is the right word, but their lower end products. They're about £165 for some bibs.
Yeah, it's 350 Australian, which is hundreds less than ASOS's top end offering in Australia.
But I've been really impressed by them so far, to the point where they're the bibs I reach for in pretty much all my rides, regardless of whether I'm actually heading off somewhere adventurous or I just want to put my gels and energy products in an easier to reach pocket. So for me, they've been eye-opening as to how great cargo shorts can be. And as someone that is incredibly sweaty, it's quite nice to have my phone on my thigh rather than bathing in my sweat on my back.
I agree on that. Like, that's been my main thing with cargo bibs.
Does Escape only hire really sweaty people? I'm starting to see a trend here.
Maybe it's also, Dave, because we don't get acclimatized for hot weather, so we just sweat a lot. Whenever it's plus 10 degrees, we're just sweaty.
Yeah, I'm not going to claim to be a dry running person either. So, interesting. Okay, yeah, I'd say ASOS makes my absolute favorite cargo bib short as well, which I would say the name of, but I don't want to give away my Wi-Fi password. And also I can't remember what the name is, but it's sort of their premium cargo short. But yeah, just a very, very comfortable short for me. I only use them for riding off road, whether it's gravel or like cross country stuff. But yeah, I'm a big fan. So yeah, welcome to the club on that one.
Do they have two different ones for men?
They've got the ones I was talking about, the Tactica T5, and then they've got the trail liners. Those are the only two they've got.
I think they might have discontinued the one I've been using. They're a couple of years old now. So, all right, probably one I need to try to get a pair of for myself to compare against. But all right, well, yeah, bib shorts. I think it's the things we spend the most time in as well, right? Like, regardless of what bike we're testing, we get to use and try out these products. So, I think it's nice when you find a new product like that does everything you want it to. Yeah. Anyway, speaking of spending a lot of time in products, I've got nothing because for obvious reasons, but I have been spending a lot of time in the workshop lately. For me, this product has been a big help the last few weeks because it's been lifting the bikes up for me, which is Feedback Sports' new Pro E-Lift repair stand. So it's their Feedback Sports' entry into what I'm going to call like a prosumer level electric work stand. So it's about $1,300 but it's aimed at sort of like really enthusiast home mechanics. But I would argue it could also be used in a professional workshop if a shop's so pleased. But compared to most other electric work stands on the market, I mean, price is one thing. The only electric work stand at a comparable price is Remco, which is a product I reviewed before. But yeah, this one's a bit more portable than others. Like it's got wheels, so you can sort of scoot it around the workshop.
I thought I envisioned portable as in like you can actually take it with you, but
oh no, it's way too heavy for that.
So Dave, what's its maximum lift capacity? Because I've used a couple of electric assisted bike stands in the past, and especially with the full fat e-bikes, some are capable and some definitely struggle to get those bikes off the ground.
Yeah, so this one's the same as Remco, which is it's got a 45 kilogram recommended maximum, which is 100 pounds. So enough to pick up most bikes, like pretty much any e-mountain bike, any sort of utility type e-bike, but it's probably not going to pick up like an ultra long wheelbase, fully loaded utility, like fully loaded cargo bike, with all the bags and everything attached. That's probably the limit of it. But the big limiter of those cargo bikes is just the wheelbase length. Like, if you think about the bike as a big lever, and it's sort of, it's just sort of placing the bike so far away from the column of the stand that you wouldn't normally pick up that sort of bike with this sort of stand. And that's not exclusive to feedback spots either. But yeah, I think it feels like it's pretty capable. I've had the heaviest bike I've had in it's probably 26, 27 kilograms. And lifted that without any moans or groans. And I even sort of like gently held the bike down to see how it would go. Haven't been in a physical condition to climb on top and sit on it and ride it to the top like I did with the Remco. But it's also this one goes that much higher than the Remco that I really wouldn't want to do it. So, but yeah, I suspect this one will probably tell me no if I tried to do that. This one's seems to have a few more smart electronics in it that seem to switch it off when it's overloaded. So, but yeah, I think it's a very interesting product. Obviously, electric work stands are not for everyone. For anyone that exclusively rides, road bikes or gravel bikes or lightweight mountain bikes, you will have no problem just lifting your own bike into a work stand. But yeah, this is really, for anyone that perhaps doesn't have the mobility or, might have a back injury or is dealing with heavier e-bikes. This sort of product makes a lot of sense and might be worth looking at. And for me, my favorite feature with it has been the height adjustment's actually done with a little foot pedal. So that sort of jots out from beneath the bike. So like it's built into one of the legs of the stand. And so I found myself, because it's so easy, one, occasionally I'd accidentally stand on it if I'm not paying attention to where I'm standing. But two, the ability to move the bike in micro adjustments. I found myself using the height adjust really regularly. Like if I'm bleeding a brake and I want to sort of not have to be on my tippy toes to, tilt a bike upright for gravity reasons, and then, still look into the bleed cup, I could just, basically while I'm working, I can be changing the height of the bike. And I thought that was a pretty cool feature. So I plan to review this one and compare it against the Remco in a bit of a battle. That's my goal for this one, and hopefully do that in the next few weeks, because I've actually been spending a bunch of time with this thing. All right, well, yeah, I mean, that's just a few of the products I've been using. There's obviously a long list there, and we'll talk about more in the future. But given that we've just had the Sea Otter Classic, and Alex, you've been to Bike Connection, which is like a media-specific cycling event. There's been all sorts of other new events at the start of the race season in mountain bike. Feels like Eurobike's not that far away at this point. Given we're in the thick of new product launches, I'm going to ask what new products that have come out recently that you want to try that you haven't yet had a chance to. Suvi, I'll hear yours first.
Well, for me, it has to be Cannondale Synapse. When I listen to the presentations, they say Synapse. I want to say Synapse. Whichever way, but the endurance road bike from Cannondale. So yeah, it's just really, it's a bike that I've been curious. I've only managed to ride the previous one, which came out already. Was it 2022 or even before when it was last? Yeah, might have been around that time. It's been a few years. But yeah, I've managed to ride that one only on a little holiday, so I haven't had much time on it. But there's plenty of other bikes like the Specialized Roubaix, even the Cervelo Caledonia 5 that I feel like they're bikes that I like, and this one kind of fits into that category, but has some things that I think could be done better than on the Caledonia. Like it has down tube storage, which I surely hope will be better than on the Caledonia 5. And it has more tire clearance than the Roubaix. I think it has 42 Roubaix has 40.
Yeah, which
So
is heaps. Yeah.
yeah, so it could be one of those. Even on the Roubaix, when I rode that one, I thought like, well, this could be one bike for everything. Kind of smoother gravel, obviously, but still you could take it pretty much everywhere. And
Yeah.
it will have the smart sense, but it's a lot neater integration now, so it doesn't look as ugly as it did
So
before.
I mean, as we're recording this bike actually isn't out yet, and by the time we publish this podcast, it will be out. Hopefully, we don't get that timing wrong. But so this is probably the first our listeners will be hearing of this bike. I suspect we'll talk about it more in the weekly Geek Warning show. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned there like 700 by 42 mil tire clearance in a new endurance road bike. They have gone integrated cable routing through the headset, which is something the previous version didn't have. They've done that with the Delta steer tube, like that triangular steer tube, which is the same system they use on their other road bikes, and also some of their gravel race bikes. But yeah, I think it's probably worth noting, like I tested this bike back at Cycling Tips. I absolutely loved how it rode, and I loved so much about it, but that smart sense almost ruined the bike for me. And I just felt like it was something you're paying for that I personally would want to take immediately off the bike. So it didn't have the battery capacity I wanted to. The lights are underpowered. They didn't last long enough, and it just sort of added all this like cost and ugliness to the bike that I just didn't really get on with. What sort of changes have they made there?
It's the battery is a lot bigger, and it's hidden in the down tube. I think it was it's 2 times the capacity as in the old one.
Yep, that rings a bell. Yep.
Yeah, and what else have they changed?
I think it can now power ETAP as well.
Yeah, it can power Axis. Yeah, there's no Di2. You cannot power Di2 on it. Oh yeah, the front light is a lot more powerful. There's still a rear radar. But yeah, and like you said about the ugliness and not wanting it, it's not going to be on all the models either. So there are going to be models a nice thing without it. Yeah. So if you don't think you need it, then...
They're being less pushy with it this time around, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And it's probably worth noting it's like kind of in collaboration. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's the previous one was in collaboration with Garmin. I think it still is. So at least, like that rear radar is going to be good.
Was it with Garmin? Because I thought
it was previously.
The design stuff was some of the light stuff was with Design.
Yeah, so the original one, the front light was Design, but the radar and battery was Garmin.
Oh yeah. So it's combo. Anyway, it is a bike that I'm excited to ride and see. Cool. Maybe not around Australia, like Morton did, but just around Scotland.
Just one lap.
One lap. It would be enough. That would be probably enough to test it.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Well, I think that's a really cool one. I think you have started to make plans to arrange one for review. So, I think that's one people will be eager to hear about because, there's not too many bikes in that category. It's a topic that I plan to write about soon, and it's a topic we've discussed on Geek Warning previously. But that endurance road category, there's not a lot of amazing options within that space at the moment. So whether this answers the wishes I've been asking for remains to be seen. But I'll cover that another day. Alex, what's on your wish list of things you want to test out?
Oh, it's forever growing, this list. But there's two main things I think for this month that I really do want to get my hands on and see how they are. And the first one on that list is Wahoo's updated Element Bolt and Roam range. It kind of didn't get a big scale launch. It kind of got launched under the radar, especially compared to the Ace at the end of last year. But the third generation
and
of both these look to the third generation of these look to bring the user interface in line with the Ace and kind of update the devices, because especially compared to Garmin's latest X40 ranges, the user interface of the Bolt and the display was definitely starting to feel a bit long in the tooth. And as someone that is very outspokenly a watch user, I'm always interested to see if any head units have features that could pull me away from a watch and actually make me want to start using a head unit as a more frequent bit of tech. So yeah, I think my experience with the version 2 Bolt especially was very mixed. I enjoyed how compact it was and just very easy to use. But one thing I always found quite underwhelming was the navigation, especially compared to what Garmin offered. So I'd be very interested to see how the new devices stack up in that respect.
Yeah, okay, interesting. I know we were in discussion with Wahoo a little while ago to get these units, and I know samples were delayed. Do we know where we're at with that?
I don't know anything on that. I think because Suvi's getting sent the Rome, is that right? And then you're just going to forward that over to me.
And the radar, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Ronin has the Bolt. But
okay. Yeah, cool. So I guess we will soon have opinions on these things. We just don't have them in hand yet, which is I think I know Suvi, you've been busy detecting things like moving cars with radars. So I think Wahoo's addition to that space is a really interesting one. I'm keen to hear how they stack up with everything else that's been infuriating you. So I should probably mention the Garmin radar is a reliable bet, but I know there's others that have not quite met expectation. So a tease of something else Suvi's working on.
I think we talked about the radars last time, like plenty,
we did too.
And people will pick that the review still not out because maybe there's a place for update here that one of them died. There's been loads more firmware updates, so there's just I feel it's a never-ending quest with these radars.
Moving target.
Yes, it is a moving target indeed. But yeah, it's still coming. It's still coming. Maybe the Wahoo one's going to get now included in it as well.
Yeah.
So.
Very good. Very good. And Alex, there's a second product that I'm looking at your list here. A Boardman SLR 105 Di2. What is this thing?
So it's been out probably 2 months or so now, and it's proving incredibly elusive to get hold of. But Boardman have launched an updated road range this year in the UK, and they are on paper they look to be incredibly good value. I think if you were to stumble across the bikes, you'd kind of assume you were looking at a website from 10 years ago with their pricing. But I'm very curious to get on the 105 build because that comes with, as you'd expect, 105 Di2, but it comes in at £2,500, which for a bike with an electronic group set and a carbon frame is a price we don't see ever really. So I'm very curious to see if or where corners have been cut to actually hit this price point because, like I say, on paper, the 105 build is remarkable value, but also going up the range, they're incredible. The range topping 9.8 SLR comes with SRAM's red Axis group set and Zip 303 wheels. So for a bike that comes in at $5,500, that is almost half the price we'd expect to see that build appear on. So if they've managed to create a frame which backs up the build, it could be a really appealing bike in the UK. But I'm very curious to see. I'm very curious to see how this price point has been achieved. So swinging a leg over is definitely hot on my list.
Yeah, cool. That price that you just mentioned there, like for a red access build bike, like £5,500 British pounds?
5.5, yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of like more than a decade ago where you used to get group set bikes where, you know, you had no interest in keeping the frame, but like you basically got the frame for free. Like it was like the cheapest way to buy a group set and some wheels was just to buy a complete bike, and that's almost there.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
That's not far off of it. So
you price up the group set and the wheels, and the only thing I would note is it's not the power meter version of the group set. Okay. So if that was something you were looking to include, that does all of a sudden bump the price up a fair amount. But for just a top tier group set and some premium carbon wheels, it's an attractive option.
Yeah, cool. And as you say, if the frame is half decent, then that is a very interesting bike. So cool. Yeah, that's one I'm keen to hear about, even though Boardman's not really a brand. I don't think it's supported in Australia at the moment. It has existed in Australia in the past, but I don't think at the moment. I think Same story for those in the USA. I think it very much is like a UK-centric brand these days, but still one I'm eager to hear about. So,
And it's still Halford's exclusive, isn't it? Yeah, which is another, so basically like Decathlon, but UK only.
Gotcha.
Shop.
It's available on Treads as well, but Treads is technically owned by Halfords.
Okay.
And it is interesting how Decathlon and Halfords / Boardman, they're going different ways. That Boardman's is definitely sticking with the value, attracting customers, and then Van Rysel, Decathlon's going the other way.
Yeah,
or still value, but like a different price.
Yeah, absolutely. Very different strategies.
Dave, what are you keen to get your hands on?
Yeah, for me, I think just watching Sea Otter from afar and having FOMO, I think tyres seem to be like the hot topic. And for me, watching a lot of brands release new tyres in the last few months, I think I'd like to start spending some time on broadening my horizons away from the tyres that I'm familiar and have learned to trust, and start trying new ones again. So like Maxxis have just updated and overhauled their entire gravel tyre range, and I've been I'm not going to say loyal, but I've been a bit of a fan of Maxxis gravel tyres for the last few years, just because they really work so well in local conditions. They're just a super reliable and well-lasting pick. So that's typically what I've spent my own money on in recent time. So yeah, the fact that they've upgraded them and they're supposedly like faster rolling and grippier and more puncture resistant, I think sounds good. Continental, they have just overhauled their mountain bike tires. So I think if I get an opportunity to, I'd like to see how those now stack up, because it's been a few years since I last ran like Race Kings on a mountain bike. And then I have managed to spend a little bit of time. Have had a few moments to ride Schwalbe's new like radial mountain bike tires, which are like a heavy duty enduro, almost downhill style tire, where a radial construction is basically borrowing tech from like the automotive world, where without sort of getting too much into this tire, but it's basically changing the casing construction, where most tires basically use like a gridded casing, and this sort of runs it the casing in like a linear sort of single direction, where all the plies run in the same direction. And the idea is that it allows like the tire to deform more, so you sort of get the ability for like individual knobs of the tire to sort of move more freely with the casing. I'm perhaps butchering the explanation of that, but that's basically what it feels like. You can more easily like sink your thumb into like one section of the tire and really squish it in, and the concept of that just makes it a much more like a tire that in theory should be much more active to grip and has potential benefits around like comfort and compliance and that sort of thing as well. So I think that's a really interesting tech, and right now it is only in like really heavy mountain bike tires, but the early experiences I've had with that makes me like very, very eager and hopeful that Schwalbe perhaps bring that into other categories of cycling. I think it could make a lot of sense for like some elements of cross country if they can get the weight out of that design. So I'm kind of intrigued by that. I actually have no idea if what I'm asking for is going to exist, but fingers crossed. All right, well, yeah, that's basically the end of the episode for everyone, and for those especially on the free feed of Escape Collective and the Geek Warning podcast. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. But if you are a member of Escape Collective and you are on the member-only feed of this podcast, then keep listening, because we're going to have a little bonus section. A bonus section of a bonus episode. I think we're going to talk about some of the products that have left us a little bit underwhelmed as of late. So, all right, well, let's dive in. And if this is where you say goodbye to us, then sorry. But jump back into the Geek Warning podcast in the next few days. You'll hear our regular weekly Geek Warning episode. And of course, there's plenty more content to catch up on. And you don't have to miss out. You can head to escapecollective.com/join, become a member, and gain access to the full version of this podcast and everything else we do. All right. Cheers.